Alex, we're ready.
Greatest day in history. Death is beaten, you have rescued me. Sing it out, Jesus is alive. The empty cross, the empty grave. Life eternal, you have won the day. Shout it out, Jesus is alive. He's alive. Oh, happy day, happy day. Wash my sin away. Oh, happy day, happy day. Never never be the same. Forever I am changed. When I stand in that place, realize meaning face to face, I am yours, Jesus, you are mine. And this joy perfect peace, perfect pain finally will cease. Celebrate, Jesus is alive. He's alive. Oh, happy day. Wash my sin away. Oh, happy day. Never be the same. Oh, happy day. Wash my sin away. Oh, happy day. Never be the same. Forever I am changed. As you go, what a glorious day. What a glorious way that you have saved me. And oh, what a glorious day. What a glorious day. Oh, happy day. Wash my sin away. Oh, happy day. Never be the same. Oh, happy day. Wash my sin away. Oh, happy day. I'll never be the same. Forever I am changed. Forever I am changed.
Good morning. Welcome to Crosspoint this morning. As we get started in our time together, the bulletin is a new format, so it may have confused you if you're used to looking at the bulletins for the last few years. First thing, on the front cover, same as it always has been, flip it all the way over to the very back. On the back is what to expect today, kind of what songs we have singing, the order of our worship, ways to get involved down in the bottom there for our children. Also, we have a prayer room if you're looking for a more quiet space. Go out the doors, turn left. We have one of the offices set up kind of like a chapel if you're looking for some time to pray during worship or even after worship. Then if you open the bulletin, then you see the different announcements and stuff on the left-hand side and then the center side, different things that are coming up to draw your attention to. One, again, a reminder, if you weren't here last week for our staff update, Reverend Amy Price is our new Director of Children and Youth Ministries. She will be starting April 1st. So just wanted to make you aware of Amy coming on board. There's her contact information in the bulletin. If you have any questions for her, or you want to shoot her an email or a call, feel free. Also, Easter flowers. Today's the last day to order Easter flowers. Different ones, lilies, all kinds of things. On the back table, there's an order form. Feel free to fill that out and also put your money with that, and you can put it in the offering basket, or you can talk to Diana after work. She's in the back right next to Johnny. Also today, this afternoon, square dancing. You do not need to like to dance. You do not need to know how to dance. You don't need to know anything other than following directions. And even if you're not very good at that, you can still do this. So we are encouraging you to bring your families. This is for all ages. All you need to do actually is be able to walk forward, backwards, right or left, and you can square dance. And most of us can walk because you got here. So would encourage you to come this afternoon. That is at 2 o'clock to 4:30. If you're one of those people say, oh, I got something, I can't come at 2, don't let that allow you to not be able to come at all. If you can come at any point, even if you want to come and sit on the side and laugh at all the people that are square dancing, feel free to come this afternoon. 2 to 4:30. If you have any questions about that, please talk to Jada Weiler. Her contact information's in there, and be a part of that. Last
really
one I
is
want to
a-
highlight on the inside section
Tom,
here.
it really is a lot of fun. I really encourage everybody to come. It's a ton of fun.
Tons of fun. Come on out. We're looking forward to this afternoon. And if nothing else, you're with your church family and you're hanging out and you're getting to grow closer to one another. Time change. Believe it or not, it's next Sunday. So we spring forward. So we lose an hour, whatever you want to say. So I think by definition, you're to stay up until 2 o'clock and then change your clocks at that time. If you're not up at 2, feel free to do it before you go to bed. But be sure that you change your clocks next Sunday, because if you don't change your clocks, we'll all know it. Last section there is the prayer requests and praises. Those are the ones that are mentioned last week, and then we have those during our prayer time. On the right-hand side is our communication card, opportunity to share some information about yourself, put your information in the lines provided, and then if there are different things that you want to get involved in the life of Crosspoint, check any of those boxes and we'll get in contact with you about those. Lastly, on the back of the communication card is our prayer request card. Know that different things go on during the week that we want to lift up in prayer. Feel free to put those on the lines provided. If you don't want it put in the bulletin or you don't want it sent out to an email that goes out to our prayer team, please mark confidential. Still be prayed over, just won't be shared in a public manner. Last one, your insert, just the Holy Week schedule of different things that we have going on. Please look over that. On the back is the Easter egg hunt that's on Easter morning. We do that during our Sunday school hour at 9:30. You can sign up for that on the back table. And also, if you'd like to take a bag of empty eggs, fill those eggs with candy, and bring them back by the 20th, that would be great. Next week, then, we'll start to collect eggs. So make sure, if you want to take one back, make sure you get it back by the 20th so we know how many eggs we have and how many we can distribute to the kids. As we get started in our time of worship today, I know that there are different things that are going on in our lives and different lists we have to get done. And just sometimes just getting to worship is an event in itself. So allow all those things to just kind of sit on the back seat for a little bit and just allow yourself to be in God's presence and hear what God may be saying to you specifically today. As we stand and get started in our worship, I'd encourage you to greet the people around you.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the risen one. I believe I overcome by the power of His blood. Amen. Amen. I'm alive, 'cause He lives. Amen. because He lives. I was dead in the grave. I was covered in sin and shame. I heard mercy call my name. He rolled the stone away. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because He lives. Amen. Amen. Let my soul join the one who never ends. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because He lives, every fear is gone. I know He holds my life, my future in His hands. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because He lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the one that never ends. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because He lives, every fear is gone. I know He holds my life, my future in His hands. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because He lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the one that never ends because He lives. All of creation, all of the earth, make straight a highway, path for the Lord. Jesus is coming soon. Call back the sinner, wake up the saint. Let every nation shout of your fame. Jesus is coming soon. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be in church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King. We sing, even so come, Lord Jesus, come. Even so come, Lord Jesus, come. There will be justice, all will be new. Your name forever, faithful and true. Jesus is coming soon, like a bride. Like a bride waiting for the groom. We'll be in church, ready for you. Every heart longing for our King. We sing, even so come, So we wait for you. God, we wait, you're coming soon. So we wait for God, we wait, you're coming soon. Every heart longing for our King, we sing like the bride waiting for a groom. We'll be a church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing even song for Jesus now. Even so now for Jesus now. So we wait for you. God, we wait, you're coming soon. So we wait for you. God, we wait, you're coming soon. Like a bride waiting for a groom, we'll be a church ready for every heart longing for our King. We sing like a bride waiting for a groom, we'll be a church ready for every heart longing for our King. We sing even so for Jesus come. Even so for Jesus come. Enter our time of prayer and get a reminder if there's anything going on in your life that you can put on prayer. Otherwise, provide our communication of our confidential people and share publicly. It's going to be great over you open up your center section and at the bottom where requests and prayers from last week, highlights one. Brett Andrews said it's not sticking out from last week. It's doing pretty well. I love the data school. So prayer that and Kyle had also continue to be naturally in here in prayer session. A couple to add, Katie Hoffman's sister-in-law, her mother passed away. Just really very sad. Some prayers for being. Also, my uncle, Roger, died in the latter rest of them, I would encourage you to look over and add to the prayer chat. One I want to highlight is kids. The kids each week, before they begin their Sunday school time, they have time of prayer. So they come together, they share joy, things that they're happy for, and things that they've been helped with. And then we put the goals. So these are what we shared last week. One that caught my eye was untangling stuff. So that's a prayer we can always use. Just untangle stuff, whatever that stuff is. smile and say everything's fine. Let's be honest. Cry out for a savior. Greeters come forward to receive our offering this morning. For this first time for this service, we are giving you obligation thing basket to buy. Consider Crosspoint your church home. You know the offering we give. Go to continue to share God's love with the world. Right. Also, our second graders and down head out for JM time. At this point, but before they go, we'd like to pray over. Gracious God, we thank you for our children and for the disciples that they bring leadership into our lives. The way that you now to you, God, we ask that you go. Second graders are down.
When you died for me there on the cross, you breathed your last as you were crucified. You gave it all for me, yeah. Hallelujah, what a Savior. Hallelujah, what a friend. Hallelujah, King forever. We thank you for the cross. They're in the ground, sealed in darkness, lifeless lay. For the Father, Son, and agony, He washes all His Son, His sacrifice. He gave it all for me, yeah. Hallelujah, what a Savior. Hallelujah, what a friend. Hallelujah, King forever. And we thank you for the cross. But on that day, it seemed as a darkest hour, violet glow. For would show up the ground as it grows. All the light of all the world is magnified. As He rose in victory. Hallelujah is written. Hallelujah is done. Hallelujah is forever. And we thank you for the cross. Oh, we thank you for the cross. Though our sins are scarlet, you made us white as snow. Though our sins are scarlet, you made us white as snow.
Just got to open our hearts to be your presence. Our ears to hear your voice. Our eyes to see your face. Words of my mouth, meditation of all of our hearts, be acceptable in your sight. Continuing our John series in which we're looking at the Gospel of John. And challenge has been to read portions of the Gospel of John each week. Depending on where you're at, either you're finishing up chapters 6 through 11, or you're beginning this week to do chapters 12 through 17. Then you're also encouraged to be in a small group and talk about the different sections of John we've been looking at. And of course, the worship each week as we continue to look at the different elements. It's a resource from Adam Hamilton, who's a minister at Church of the Resurrection in Kansas. And what I wanted to do is look at the different ones today. We began with the Word became flesh. That's what we talked about, the miraculous signs of Jesus. Today we're going to talk about the I am sayings of Jesus. So I was reading this particular portion and thinking about the I am statements. It became to me, we use a lot of I am sayings in our lives. And from a very young age with our children, we want them to express to us what they're thinking, what they're feeling. So how old are you? I am two, or I am this, or I am. And we just want them to constantly use I am, I am, I am. And then when we get older, just to describe everything about us. We want others to know how we're feeling, what we do, where we're going, what we want to be. I am, I am. It's interesting that there are a lot of I am statements throughout Scripture. God uses I am statements. Familiar story is the story of Moses and the burning bush. Moses is there and he's out in the wilderness and there's this bush that's on fire but not being consumed, and he has this conversation with God, and God's telling Moses, I want you to go do this, this, and this. And Moses is sitting there saying, I'm not sure about all that. And finally he wants to know, well, what am I to call you? At that time there were a bunch of different gods. Now. Moses says, what's your name? This is what he says. In Exodus, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God's name is I am. No title, no description, no long sentence, simply I am. Hamilton puts it this way: by revealing his name, I believe God was saying, I am being itself, or I am the source of existence, of life itself. Moses said, who are you? God replied, I am. That's it. Yes. And then Jesus comes along. And Jesus uses I am to describe himself to others quite often. He recalls a conversation that God had with Moses to even make the point again and again. We find it in John chapter 8. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thoughts of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. You are not yet 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham? Very truly I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I. Of course, this didn't go over well, because they would all know when him saying I am that he's claiming to be God again. And it didn't go over well, but it didn't stop him from saying it. He just kept telling people, I am. I am. Sometimes he just simply says I am, and that's all he says. But other times he uses it as a metaphor. He uses it to say what he is. And those are the sayings that we're going to look at today. I am sayings. Now there are 7 of them, all throughout John. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the gate of the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I am the true vine. Now again, as with last week with the 7 miracles, so that's 7 miracles, and now we have 7 miraculous signs. Now we have 7 I am statements. Don't feel like you need to get comfy and all settled in. We're not going to go over all 7 of them. We're going to pick 1. Last week I picked 2. This week 1. So we'll get even better. I am the bread of life. This I am statement is found in John chapter 6. Chapter 6 begins with feeding the 5,000, and that's probably a story that we're most familiar with. And I would encourage you to read all of chapter 6 when you have a chance, because we're only going to hit a couple verses in it. Beginning with verse 3. Then Jesus went up to the mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. That points out that they were preparing for Passover. Now, some of us in our tradition, we think, what is Passover? What's all that? We're citing back to an Old Testament again. Passover was the night before the Israelites were delivered out of Egypt by God. And what they did is they took a lamb and they sacrificed the lamb. And they took the blood of the lamb and they put it on their doorpost. And if the doorpost had the lamb's blood on it, God would pass over and protect them. And ever since that night, Jews celebrate the Passover as a time of remembering that God delivered them from Egypt, a time of remembering that they cried out to God and God answered, and they were spared. As Hamilton says, eating the Passover Seder meal is a way for all Jews to reenact and become a part of that story. And they claim it as their story. It's interesting, in chapter 6, we're beginning this whole festival and this whole time as they're preparing for Passover. So they're all preparing to remember how God was active in their lives. We'll continue on in 5. Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him. He said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He used the word bread. He didn't say, where should we buy a meal? Where should we get some food? Where should we buy bread for these people? Reminding the importance of bread. Now, he knows what he's going to do with the bread here, but he's reminding them how important bread is to the whole thing. He continues on. Jesus said, have the people sit down. There's plenty of grass in that place. And they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. He took bread, gave thanks, and gave it to the people. Sounds very, very similar to what was shared at the Last Supper when he took bread, gave thanks, and gave it to his disciples. Or when we celebrate communion, when we take bread, give thanks, and give it to one another. And then the 5,000 were fed. More than they needed. Extra was there. Then the disciples get into a discussion in the rest of chapter 6. Jesus about what signs they're going to receive. Show us. Show us what signs so that we can believe you and trust you and understand you. It's interesting. They're asking for a sign after they just saw him feed an entire crowd of people with some bread and some fish. How many times do we see God at work so much in front of us? And yet we say, just give me one more sign, God, then I'm all in. If you just show me one more thing, God, then I'm there. They saw 5,000 men, not counting families, be fed. And they're arguing about, we just need one more thing. Just show us one more thing, God, then we're all in. We'll pick up in chapter 28. Then they ask him, what must we do to do the works God requires? Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. So they ask him, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven. It is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. The bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never thirst. I am the bread of life. Jesus rules everything. He rules their Passover feast, where God was active with their life when they got out of Egypt. He rules the manna from heaven when they were in the wilderness, and God continued to supply from them. And then he pulls it together and heals. That's now bread from heaven. It gives life. Hamilton says it this way in his words, I am the bread of life. Jesus draws from the Passover say to the manna by which God sustained the Israelites in the wilderness. He does so to point to the deliverance he will bring by his death. In the way ongoing belief can sustain his disciples. It's the bread of life. We need bread. There's no other way to put it. We need bread to eat. Bread has been a staple food that we've eaten for many, many years. I remember growing up when I would go to my grandparents' house, and no matter what you were having at mealtime, no matter what the meal was, there was bread on the table. It was called butter bread at that time. My grandma would say, you want some butter bread? Now I say that to the boys, and they look at me like, oh. But you had toast with whatever you were having for breakfast. You had oftentimes a sandwich that you made with bread for lunch. And then at dinner, whatever the meal was, it was bread. You ate it. You enjoyed it. The people who heard Jesus talking about bread at that time knew the importance of bread for their nourishment, for sustaining them. Because that's what they ate a lot of. No matter what they had bread. And even no matter where they were on in the spectrum, they ate bread. We don't eat as much bread today as they did then. So we sometimes say, well, what do you eat bread for? So we think sometimes bread isn't healthy. It's got too many carbohydrates and it's got too many this. So and white bread isn't as good as we thought white bread was. So it's got to be the whole wheat bread, or it's got to be the bread that has everything in it, with all different colors and all different grains. Or if you don't want a full bread, then you can get a sandwich thin if you want. It's not quite as much bread, but you're still having bread. So when Jesus said to them, I'm the bread of life, they understood bread was important to eat. For us, we have to remember that bread's important to eat. It's important for us, nourishment. And if bread isn't your thing, just look at it as whatever your food may be, saying you need it, nourishment. You need it to be a part of growth and acknowledgement. You need it to sustain. We need bread for food. We need to break bread with each other. Hamilton says the Latin word for breaking bread is preparare, from which we have our word in. Bread sustained, but also binds people together. Again, the people Jesus is talking about would have broken bread with each other at almost every meal. They would have sat around together. They would have broken bread. They would have handed a piece to somebody else. They wouldn't have worried about, did you wash your hands before you did? They just would have broken the bread, eaten it, and they would have been fine. And then in the midst of breaking bread, they would have talked and they would have shared. They would have bonded with one another and got to know one another. We've gotten away from breaking bread together. We've gotten away from mealtime conversations. You think about, we have things now that you can do meal without even talking to one another. We have TV trays where the whole design of having a TV tray is that you can put your plate and your meal on a tray while you're watching TV. And if you don't want to actually go and put your meal on a plate, you can just get a TV dinner that has everything there for you to be able to eat while you watch TV. And if you're somebody that holds out and doesn't have a TV near where you're eating, we've got so many mobile devices that we can have them with us anytime and in any place. So when we say breaking bread now, that simply means we're sitting at a table together, but it doesn't mean we're talking and sharing it all with one another. You go to restaurants. We look around at the restaurant and everybody's got their head like this. And I know I do it too. Watching a TV show the other day, and they were going on a family vacation and family trip. And the dad said, this is going to be a device-free trip. And he took their phones and their iPads and any electronical device, and he hit them, and you'd have thought he was cutting off somebody's arm. And they complained about it, and they moaned about it. The trip was 2 days. 2 days. When they broke bread, and Jesus is talking about breaking bread and the bonding that was taking place. It was mealtime. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. So that we can bond with one another and grow closer to one another while we sit around the table. We need to break bread together. We grow closer to one another. We learn about the day. We learn about our lives. We bond. We need the bread of life. Again, Jesus is talking to people, and they're in the midst of a difficult time. They're in Roman rule, and life isn't easy, and life is difficult, and they have all these religious rules that are sometimes pulling them away from God, and they just want life. They want something. So to hear Jesus say, I'm the bread of life, they hear this life word and think, I need this life. Sometimes forget that we need Jesus also. I mean, our life is generally pretty good for the most part, and we don't have too many bumps along the way at times, and we, even when those bumps come, we just think we can handle it, and we're not really that desperate that we need this. The only time that we say we need Jesus' life is when everything else isn't working. When we've tried everything else, and our relationships still aren't working, and our health is in bad shape, or we lose somebody close to us, or our job is falling apart, or school has been tough, then we say, I need this life. But all that other time, we just think we don't need it. Don't cry out. Don't ask me. Say, I am good. I am okay. We have to remember that Jesus fills our spirits at all times. Jesus offers us strength and hope, encouragement and love and forgiveness. And those aren't just in desperate times, those are at all times in our lives. It helps us live the life authentically to the fullest. That's the life he offers. That's the bread he offers. The question is, are we ready to receive the bread Jesus offers us? We're going to take a hold of that bread, share it, allow it to be our life. We share communion at the Lord's Supper once a month. Once a month, we come to Cross Point, and on the first Sunday of the month, we have time where we share communion, and we have the elements, and we talk about God's love, and we talk about God's forgiveness, and we talk about what He has to offer us and what He has to share with us. And we do it all the time. And sometimes we forget what we're actually doing, what we're actually partaking in. I mean, we remember that it was so long ago that he met with his disciples and he took the bread and he broke it and he passed it to them and he gave thanks. This is my body given for you. Take it. And they do. And then there are times when we sit around and they're sitting at the table and they have this conversation. They were breaking bread, sharing with one another. He interrupts them again. He takes the cup and says, "My blood poured out for you." And that's what we do every time we come together. I want us to think more about the bread. He puts it this way. And so Jesus had said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." In other words, Jesus is the source of life, our spiritual sustenance. Holy Communion is the means by which Christians recognize Christ as the bread of life, participate in his story, and invite him both spiritually and physically into our lives through the eating of the bread and drinking. So let it be bread to you today. Bread that you eat and you taste and you feel that physical sensation. Also let it be light. You take, you allow him to be a part of your life. Be a part of your life. I also want us to remember today is about communing with God and each other. We call it communion. Coming together. Another puts it this way. Jesus is also the bread that brings people together. When we speak of the Lord's Supper as Holy Communion, we're referring to the way the meal is meant to bring us into communion with God and with one another. When we break bread together, we are bound together. It's a family of believers. We're bound together. So we're going to do communion a little differently today. We're still going to do bread and we're still going to do juice. But what we're going to do is when you come forward, you'll take a piece of bread. And then you'll take the loaf. And you'll turn around to the person behind you. And you'll say, "Bread of life, give me free." Then they'll take a piece of bread. Then they'll take the loaf and pass it to the person behind you. And then I'll be standing over here, and Dennis will be standing over here with the cup, and you go ahead and take, just like we usually do with the tincture, which will dip it in to the cup. But today it's about breaking bread together, not just breaking bread with me holding it or the other person holding it. Breaking bread together. Each one of us. Let us pray. Gracious God, for your Holy Spirit, I'm going to give us bread and juice. It can be for us your body, redeemed by your blood. We may be removed from this world. We also have what's called focused prayer time. So if you have something going on in your life that you want to pray with someone about, back by the prayer banner, Jade is back there and she'd love to pray with you about whatever may be going on in your life. So we'll still do 2 lines. So we'll come forward, and as always, it'll be if you want to protect yourselves from colds and stuff, feel free. But you'll take a piece of bread and pass it to the person behind you. Come pray.
I hear the singing song. My strength is small. Child of weakness, watching for. Find in me thine all in all. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin and left the crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Lord, now indeed I find thy blood and thine alone can change the leper's spots and melt the heart of stone. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. And when before the throne I stand complete, Jesus died, my soul he saved. My lips shall still repeat, Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left the crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left the crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Jesus, life from the dead. Oh, praise the one who made my dead. Praise his life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who made my dead. Praise his life up from the dead. Jesus, all to him I owe. Sin had left crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow.
Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for this gift of your love, gift of your forgiveness. And God, we ask that we walk away from this day knowing you, walk away differently. We conclude our time of worship today. If you're with us for the first time, stop by our welcome table right out the door to the left-hand side. We have a gift we'd love to share with you, answer any questions you may have about the different ministries here at Crosspoint. Also, a couple sign-up sheets on the back, the Easter egg hunt, also the Seder meal, and the Election Day bake sale. Different things on the back table to be involved in. Feel free to stop by and check those out. As you go today, remember, Jesus is the bread of life. Go allow Jesus to break bread with you.